Good afternoon and welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Parks, Recreation and Community Service Commission for Monday, July 18th. Can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Scarpetian?
Here.
Han is absent. Patrick?
Here.
Sharkey?
Here.
President Rockfogle.
Here.
The agenda for the July 18, 2011 meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on Wednesday, July 13, 2011. Item 2, introductions and presentations. 2A, presentation by ARC Family Center, Inc.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm here on behalf of ARC Family Center. My name is Suna Vartanyan. I am 20 years old. I'm going to touch really quickly on a little bit about the background of ARC Family Center, and then I'll go into a little bit more details, and of course you guys are more than welcome to ask questions. I have been an active volunteer for ARC Family Center for the past 6 years. ARC Family Center has been here locally in Glendale since 1999, and we have programs that serve youths, adults, and families, and we just basically provide programs and trainings that really, the best way I can put it is that assists each participant who participates in our programs to relate to themselves and to others, and really to live a life of choice. Because we believe that when a person or a participant is able to live a life of choice, they're able to let go of all that negative, unhealthy trauma or behaviors that have been passed down from generation to generation. And I actually got to experience this firsthand because I did the seminar in 2006. I did the youth version of our seminar, and at the time I was 15 years old. And going to high school here, it really wasn't easy. You know, I went to Hoover High School. Great academy-wise, academic-wise, very good. It's just emotionally, I wasn't stable enough to be there. I remember at the time, the transition from middle school to high school was very, very challenging for me. So when I went into high school, there was a lot of anger in me. There was a lot of stuff going on in me that I wasn't able to deal with. I was never bullied, but all the outside factors, the stressors, not being able to do what I wanted to do, I was stuck. I got to watch my friends do everything that they had set their goals to do, get into clubs, go into certain sports teams, and I just kind of stood there and I was like, I want to be able to do that, and I never knew how to. I didn't have that confidence, or I can't tell you what it is now. It's 6 years has gone by since then, but there was something that was missing, and I would take all that angst home and I would dump it on my parents, and they didn't know how to deal with it. They didn't go to high school here, and I didn't really know how to talk to them about this stuff, and so it kind of created so much tension between us that at a point we couldn't sit at a table and talk without arguing or being angry at each other, and that was really the breaking point for me. I was actually fortunate enough to have a friend who was volunteering for the organization who said, you know what? There's a youth program. I want you to come and do it, and I think it's very beneficial for you. And I came in. It's an 8-week program, 2-hour sessions for youth. I came in every week, and I was able to, A, be aware of what was going on with me, and then B, be able to, with all the tools and techniques that come along with every week, be able to take care of what was going on. Now, in that 8 weeks, did I transform to be someone completely different? No. It was just 8 weeks, an eye-opener to really learn how to get those tools and work on all the challenges I was having. But it's a work in progress. I've come a very long way. I'm actually a part of the leadership team. I should have said this in the beginning. This is a part of my training to be here to present. Our executive director and the founder, Dr. Khulavardian, sends his regards, but this was a little test for us. Because I've been in the program for the past 6 years, and my goal was to really be able to teach the seminar and really reach out to youth my age, or at least when I was a youth when I did it, and really just advocate this program to them so that if they're stuck in their lives and something isn't going the way they want it to, so that they're able to come back into it. As a part of my goal, I went into the Leadership Academy about 2.5 years ago, and I've been working very hard, and this is just another little step in my direction up. And one other thing I wanted to add in, we added in the youth program in 2006 because we had done this for adults since 1999, and at the time we had kind of realized that, okay, so there's this we've done it for adults, so now let's see if we could use the same thing for youth. Melina Sartor, who's our educational director, came into the program, and it was her idea mainly because she was like, well, I went to high school here, and I'm sure that kids would really, 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 they need it, and they would also appreciate having this kind of a training to go along when they're in high school, so they're able to deal with things a little bit better. So in 2006, we started the youth program, and in 2008, we were blessed with the CDBG grants. So we've been able to serve low-income families, and we've worked with numerous what's the word I'm looking for? Organizations in the community to really spread this and get more youth. And I'll turn the mic over to my associate here, and he'll tell you a little bit about his experience.
Sure. Good afternoon, Commissions. My name is Orbel Barsegian. I am 20 years old, and I'm also part of the Leadership Academy. And I've been with our family center for the past 3 years, and I had one of the absolute best journeys of my life. I started to the point that my life started changing, because when I did the program, I was new to the country. As an immigrant to the new country, it was very challenging for me to adapt to the new situation. And I was kind of lost. I didn't know what I'm going to do, what I'm going to major in, how I'm going to work, and so on and so forth. And since I started participating in the program, I participate through the membership of Glendale Youth Alliance, which is an organization that gives jobs to youth. And they told me, you got to go to this training because it's a job training. You either go to this or there is no job. But actually, it was not a job training; it was a life training. And I'm very blessed that I participated. And since then, I've become a volunteer, and my life started changing. And a year and a half ago, I got hired through the city of Glendale, and right now I work for Vertigo Job Center for Parks and Recreation Department as well. And also I found out what I'm going to major in. But one of the best benefits that I got through the program was I got confidence. Confidence was not something that my parents taught me, and it was not something that they taught me in the school. It was something that it was missing. It was not like I can go to a shop and I can buy just confidence. It was not something like that. But I just gained that confidence. They taught me how to do it. Every week I got new tools and techniques that started supporting me in my life, and just made me transform person. And the reason that I joined the Leadership Academy is because it's like I learned something useful and valuable, and it's a disservice if I don't share to my community. And I want to spread the word to my community and tell everyone what we have so we can serve them. I also prepare some of the flyers that we have. I can pass through it, and you guys can look through it. We also have introduction seminars on every other Monday. It's a free introductory seminar. That's one of the ways that we recruit new members for to our center, and it's free of charge. So it's open to the public, and anyone can come in. And pretty much that's it. We also have one of our youth graduates, Arthur. He's going to be talking.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm Arthur Kamtrashin. I'm 16 years old, and I currently attend Hoover High School. One of the breakthroughs I had in the youth CFA that I did was I stopped procrastinating as much. I started because I would procrastinate a lot. I would always leave everything to the last minute, but doing the program, doing all the seminars and everything, and it just really changed me because I set my goals, and every week there was something there that helped me accomplish the goal, whether it was to wake up a little bit earlier or it was to complete a task I hadn't. And it just really helped me. I'm able to take on more projects, and it's really improved my life, and I'm really grateful for it.
And this part of the presentation is done unless you guys have any questions.
This is funded by grants, is that?
Well, the low-income portion, yes. So the youth from 14 to 18 and 18 to 20, we fund through CDBG. Everything else, there is a cost to the program for families who aren't low-income. For the youth seminar, it's $295. And then, of course, if they're still low-income and they don't fit into the CDBG budget, we will find sponsors, or we have scholarships, or we'll do fundraisers.
Can I add something? For instance, this Saturday we have a car wash at Albertsons on Central Avenue. We fundraise money for people, low-income families that maybe they're borderline on the low income and they cannot pay the tuition. So we do fundraising so we can support them and give that opportunity them to participate in the program. That's one of the other ways.
Can you let us know what ARC stands for?
It's the name ARC. It's
not an acronym?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say that if you three are examples, you're doing a great job down there. Thank you so much for being here today.
And if I can take the class on procrastination?
Yeah, could Steve please enroll him?
Flyer, I believe, is the adult flyer.
And there's more cost, right?
A little bit more cost, yeah.
Yeah, if you're really set in your ways.
Yeah.
How do you recruit people for this? I mean, you've got these flyers. Where are these flyers distributed?
We can't post them in high schools per se, so we'll send them to our members. It'll be in colleges. We have introduction nights, so people come. Is word of mouth, and it's emails to our associate members, or members of ARC, and then we have GYA, Youth Family Services, AGBU, Door of Hope, Sir Optimist of Glendale, Healthy Star, and Rosie Camp that we work with. So that also gets it out there.
And where are the classes held?
At ARC Family Center.
And where is that?
Right at the bottom, it's on Jackson right here, 135 South Jackson Street, Suite 102, Glendale, California, 91205.
Okay, so if someone is listening to this and they want to call you,
yes, they would need to call us at 818-662-7045, extension 2.
Okay, thank you. Great
You
job.
three are a tribute to this whole program.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's,
more questions.
I would like to congratulate you first on your achievements. It's a great job. What are the age limits for adults, your adult programs? What do you have age brackets? Do you have an age limit? How does that work?
We do. For adults, generally, it's just 18 and over. Because we do have a CDBG grant that covers 18 to 20, we give those young adults an option of if they want to sit in the youth or the adult. But if you're an adult over 18, you're sitting in the adult program.
Okay. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And what is next, please?
Item 2B, presentation by Housing Rights Center.
God, I'm smart and articulate when I was...
Good afternoon. My name is Amy. I am an outreach coordinator with the Housing Rights Center. I believe I passed some green and white packets were passed around. Yes, that is ours. The Housing Rights Center is a private nonprofit fair housing organization. So as a fair housing organization, our job is to stop discrimination in housing. We do that either through education and advocacy, such as coming out to meetings as this, or hosting workshops or doing presentations for other nonprofits, and enforcement. Basically, if someone comes to us with a complaint, we will investigate that complaint for them and see if we do find discrimination, and if we do, we will try to stop it. So our private nonprofit, we are contracted with Los Angeles and Ventura County to provide free services to the community. We also have individual contracts with several cities within those counties, Glendale being one of them. So we have a staff of about 25 people. And we are made up of essentially 4 departments. So the first department is the counseling department, and they're the ones who answer all the questions. They are essentially our front line of defense. So if we have an 800 number on all the back of those brochures, so if anyone has questions as to why their security deposit is not being returned, or why repairs are not being made, or why such and such person is being harassed, they can give us a call and we can try to answer those questions for them. And if we need to, we will refer them to the appropriate services or other organizations who might be able to further assist them. We also have an investigations department. They are solely responsible for investigating those complaints of discrimination. Everything that we do is based on evidence. We have to find evidence that discrimination is going on. Not every complaint we get will turn into a case. But they do a wonderful job of finding that evidence and basically enforcing the fair housing law so that discrimination no longer happens to that person and to any future tenants who might be living in that property. We also have a litigation department. We do have our own staff attorneys. They deal with more tougher cases, or what they would call the more egregious cases. So we don't have that many cases referred to the litigation department, but for the more serious cases, that's what they're there for. We also have an outreach department, which is something that I'm a part of. We do workshops, like I said, for the community all the time. All our workshops are free and open to the public. We actually host 2 workshops for the residents in the city of Glendale a year. One workshop primarily for anybody who is an in-place tenant or maybe a prospective tenant, and a workshop specifically for landlords or managers. Okay, so I just really wanted to go over quickly with you the fair housing laws. So there are 2 sets of laws that we follow at the Housing Rights Center in California. The first set of laws is called the Fair Housing Act, actually part of the Civil Rights Act. Not a lot of people are aware that the Civil Rights Act has this section in there that protects people in housing. So just really quickly down the line, it states that the landlord or manager cannot discriminate against tenants based on their race, color, religion, sex, and when we say sex, there are 2 types of sex discrimination: gender and sexual harassment, national origin, familial status, and disability, both physical and or mental disability. Familial status generally refers to the presence of a child under the age of 18. So that happens to be the second most reported case that we get at the Housing Rights Center. A lot of times we see properties where the sign will blatantly say no children, or no children allowed, or they might have rules that are overly restrictive that says children cannot play outside, or children must keep quiet, or children cannot leave their toys outside. But things like that are actually discriminatory because they only target a specific group of people, which is families of children. We also see cases where there might be occupancy limits as to the number of people that are allowed to rent in a particular property. So let's see, if we have a 1-bedroom apartment and you're letting 1 person live in there, you might automatically be discriminating against families, because family by definition is at least 2 people, which, you have the minor and the guardian. We also see types of steering where they might try to convince families to live on the first floor instead of the second floor because they're worried about complaints from tenants living below, or they're worried about the safety of the child. And for disability happens to be the number 1 reported case that we get at the Housing Rights Center. Essentially, under this, it states that the tenant with a disability has the opportunity to request a reasonable accommodation or a reasonable modification. So an accommodation is an exception or a change to a rule or a policy, whereas a modification involves some kind of structural change to the property. So we see a lot of buildings that have a no pet policy. That's reasonable and it is legal in the state of California. However, there are some tenants out there who do require the assistance of a companion or service animal, such as someone who is blind and they might need a seeing eye dog to live with them, or someone who has depression and maybe having a cat there will help alleviate some of those symptoms of depression. Some common examples other common examples that we see might be assigning a parking spot for someone who has mobility issues so that it's not so strenuous on them to walk from their car to their home. For the modifications, we get a lot of modification requests, such as someone who's in a wheelchair and their house currently does not have wheelchair access. Maybe they can ask the landlord to allow them to put one in, or widening doorways, or even something like pulling up the carpet. It's for hardwood floors if someone in a wheelchair. All of these things are meant to give the tenant with a disability equal enjoyment of their own home. Just a few things to keep in mind, however, is that the tenant with the disability is the one who would have to pay for the costs of the modifications. They are also responsible for, coming forward to the landlord and letting them know that they have a disability and they need this to be done. Under no circumstances should the landlord ask what type of disability the tenant has, but if they do need proof, they can ask the tenant to go to their doctor to get a doctor's letter and say that my patient has a disability, my patient needs this request done. Okay, and just really quickly going into the California law, it's called the California Fair Employment and Housing Act. It just adds additional protected characteristics. So the first one is marital status, and then ancestry, sexual orientation, and income source. So essentially what the landlord cannot do is refuse to rent, sell, or lease a dwelling based on those characteristics. We do see sometimes landlords who say, you know, everybody here speaks English, you might want to try somewhere else, or we don't allow children here, we don't have kids who live at this property, or they might promote a certain type of living for, you know, it's an active community, what, you know, someone with a disability might find it discouraging to live there. Not differential treatment, so we see different terms. Sometimes we do see families with children, they are charged maybe a higher security deposit because they are worried about families with children essentially, I guess, damaging the property, or, you know, for different treatment. Everybody might have the same rules that they have to follow, but some tenants might be treated more differently than others, such as refusing to make repairs for certain tenants, maybe because they are from a different country or they don't speak the language particularly, or what else do we see? Harassing certain tenants. We see that a lot as well. Statements of preference. Verbal statements are not going to be as obvious these days. They're not going to say, I don't want your kind in my building, but they might say, you know, it's just a little more subtle form, like, you know, no one here really speaks your language, you might want to try somewhere else, or you might, if you have kids, I think you should look near the schools, you know, or advertisements. We see advertisements that advertise for a specific type of tenant they're wanting to look for. Especially around the LA area, we see advertisements that are only in a specific language. I see advertisements that might be only in Korean or only in Chinese or only in Spanish. Those types are actually discriminatory because who's going to know that that place is for rent, or, you know, who's going to know that there's an opportunity for them to live here if they can't read the sign? And next is lying about the availability of a dwelling. We have a lot of people who call us because they saw an ad outside, or they saw an ad online, and they call in the next day and, you know, the manager says nothing's available. And some tenants will usually feel it's, they could be lying maybe because they had an accent or they didn't speak very good English, or you know, maybe they went in and they saw that they had a daughter or a small son with them and they didn't want to rent to families. So essentially that's what we do at the Housing Rights Center. We investigate cases like this, and we enforce the fair housing law so people have the opportunity to live where they want to live and where they can afford to live without being discriminated against based on such arbitrary characteristics such as religion or race or national origin. And all our services are free, so we always do try to encourage people to call us, even if it's for the simplest thing. You never know, you might get answers to everything under the sun. You know, we have everybody calling us, landlords, managers, and tenants who call us with questions in regards to what they can and cannot do. Okay. Any questions?
Any questions?
Couple of questions for you. How many cases do you handle a year? And let me ask you a few-part questions, and maybe you can answer them all together. And most of the issues that you have, is it in an area like Glendale that has no rent control, or in areas that they have rent control? And that's one of the questions that I have. The other one is, are your attorneys on payroll, or they are volunteers as well?
Okay, so let me answer your first question as to how many cases we get. I think within the last year we received anywhere between 20 to, can't remember, about 22,000 phone calls. From those phone calls, I believe around 400 or 500 were discrimination cases. Okay. So like I said, not every complaint that we get will turn into a case. Some of them are resolved without having to go to that point. And I believe your second question was, where do we see these cases? It really doesn't matter if it's rent control or not. I would say most of the issues sometimes in a city that's not rent control might have to do with rent increases. Some not for Glendale in particular, but for some people that I've talked to, they always wonder why some certain cities aren't under rent control and, why the landlord is evicting them without really giving them a reason. But as we all know, if a city is not under rent control, they don't necessarily need to provide a reason for asking a tenant to leave, except for Glendale, where I know you have that city ordinance where you need certain reasons to evict a tenant. Yes. So Glendale is a special exception to the eviction part. And for our attorneys, they are not volunteer attorneys. We have 3 full-time attorneys on staff who are on payroll.
Okay. So if I'm a tenant and I have a problem, I'm being discriminated against, and I don't know where to go, I can come to you. You can direct me to the appropriate resources and departments in the city or the county or what have you.
Right. If it's a regular landlord-tenant issue, such as repairs not being made, which is a big issue, security deposits not being returned, which is a big issue for tenants because they need that money to move, landlords going into their homes all the time, we might be able to try to resolve that, but just by speaking to the tenant and teaching them what their rights are, or if necessary and if they want to, we can refer them to the appropriate resources. But for discrimination cases, we would just try to handle it ourselves, kind of look into the complaint of discrimination and see if we can find evidence. Sometimes we might refer it to the State Department, which is responsible for enforcing the fair housing laws, called the Department of Fair Employment and Housing. Sometimes we might have to refer it to litigation if it's a very serious case.
And last question, Mr. President, if I may. Where does your funding come from? And before you leave, please give us all your information so people at home watching, they would know how to contact you.
Of course. Our funding comes from several sources. Like I said earlier, we are contracted with Los Angeles and Ventura counties and several cities within those counties. And as far as I know, some of those cities are receiving CDBG funding from HUD. And as a condition of receiving those CDBG fundings, you have to affirmatively further fair housing. So that's where we come in. We are here to affirmatively further fair housing so that everybody has a chance to housing without discrimination.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Jeff?
Mr. President, if I may expand a little bit. It was mentioned that the Housing Rights Center receives CDBG funds from the City of Glendale. They receive, I think, $10,000 per year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it is enough for them to be able to serve between 900 and 1,000 Glendale residents that call their offices with basic tenant and landlord type of questions. And probably 80-90% of the questions really don't progress into a discrimination case. So in most cases, it's basic information and referrals that people receive as a result of calling the Housing Rights Center. And as a condition of the City of Glendale and any other city receiving HUD, Community Development and Housing Funds, for example, in the case of Glendale, we receive $8 million in CDBG and federal housing funds, plus $12 million from our Section 8 program. That's $20 million. We are required to provide tenant landlord services to the residents of our community as a condition for receiving those grants, and so we're fortunate that we're able to contract with the Housing Rights Center to provide that service to our citizens.
Great. And I just have 2 short questions. One, what about facilities that are strictly for seniors, not senior retires, but places that you have to be 55 or older to move in?
As far as I know, they're not exempt from the fair housing laws. The only thing they are exempt from is the Unruh Civil Rights Act, which states that the landlord cannot discriminate based on age. So essentially, just think about anybody who is 18 and over. We do see sometimes cases where maybe the landlord wants a particular environment at their building and want to rent to people who are between 25 or 35, and if they want, a quieter or more homey building, they might want to rent to someone who is older. But the senior housing is an exception to the Unruh Civil Rights Act.
And on the other end of that spectrum, when I was in college, I remember going to an apartment, at least in one occasion, and being told flat out, I don't rent to students. Is that the kind of thing that now, if that happened, you would be able to help me?
Unfortunately, the student status is not a protected class. I believe the only...
So it would be done on age?
The only city might be... that might have that might be LA City, but it really depends on what the situation is. We would have to look at let's say if you're a 19-year-old and you're old enough to rent, we would have to look at whether or not they have other 19-year-olds in there who might not be a student but might have a full-time job. So in which case it might be income source discrimination. Maybe you are a student who is relying on maybe financial aid, and they don't want to rent to you maybe because they think you probably don't get enough money from financial aid. So there are different factors that we have to look at, and there are different things that we can evaluate and see if it could be a case. But I mean, I think it's worth it though to give us a call and learn what your rights are, and to see if there's something there, and that's what the Housing Rights Center is here for.
Well, happily, I'm no longer a student.
I think we've all had bad landlord-tenant stories.
Yep. Any other questions? No. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Your phone number and how people would contact you.
Oh, yes. If anybody has any questions or would like to contact us, they can call us at 800-477-5977. They can also submit an answer on our website at www.housingrightscenter.org.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Our office is located at 520 South Virgil Avenue, Suite 400, Los Angeles, California, 90020. Any other questions?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And what is next?
Item 3, Commission staff comments.
Go ahead. You can go first this time.
I can go first. I just wanted to say that I had the pleasure of participating in the Griffith Manor opening not too long ago, and what a fabulous event it was. Staff did a great job, and it was just so much fun to watch the community be so enthused about that park and just be so happy with the building and everything that was there. It's a gorgeous park and very much needed. And it was just really a nice day and fun to be there. So thank all of you on the staff that worked on that. It's a great addition to the parks.
Weren't you also at Maple?
I was, but I thought someone else might want to talk about Maple.
Bartan. Oh, were you at Maple? Yeah,
Yes, I was.
We were all
Go
at
for Maple.
Yeah, Maple. Thank you.
It was also
Maple,
wonderful.
famous. Every opening that we have or reopening is a wonderful event, and we all attended that Maple Park reopening, and what a great, especially the beams on that basketball court. It's just awesome. The light, natural light that comes in, is just amazing. I mean, I'm not young enough, not old enough to play basketball in that court anymore, but hey, we enjoy watching the kids playing, and it was a great event. Also, I was at the Griffith Manor Park as well, and to my surprise, I received a sword from Mr. Dave Ahern, who was his last day at work, I guess, and it was an honor for me, and I want to thank everyone in the department and thank Dave Ahern as well. That's it.
Great.
I would encourage everyone to visit both those parks. Project managers' teams, incredible. Cruise night. I have to commend the staff, the committee. What an event. The crowd was exuberant. It was a perfect night. Great music selection. Cars breathtaking, some of them. It's and I can't thank the people on the committee. I see some of them here. Iris Ross is here. If I'm missing anybody on the... Gary, were you on that committee? And Joanne? No, Joanne was copied, yeah. But anyway, and kids, and it was a family event. It was a safe event. What do we have, 45,000 plus people, and everybody was just having the greatest time, including me. So I just want to thank everyone on the committee, staff, even police patrolled so well. What a night. I was so proud of Glendale. So anyway, that's it.
Well, I was only able to go to the grand reopening of Maple Park and the new facility there because right after that, I left to go on vacation for a couple of weeks in Vermont, where they have some beautiful, wonderful parks, and we saw many of them there. But the other thing that we got to participate in was an old-fashioned 4th of July barbecue, picnic, parade, and it would be something that would be fun to do here also at some point. And then Saturday night, I was also out of town for my high school graduation. It was my reunion. And but there were people there that were asking me why I was at the reunion and not at cruise night, because they heard about it on the radio and they knew about it and they know what a great event it is. And I plan on being there next year. But it's great to walk into a building or a facility or something like that and have people tell you what a great city you live in, and we do. Are there any staff comments? No? Great. What is next?
Item 4 is oral communications, but I don't have any cards.
Nor do I.
Item 5, consent items. 5A, approval of the minutes of the Commission regular meeting held on June 20th, 2011.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Scarpetian?
Yes.
One is absent. Patrick?
Yes.
Sharkey?
Yes.
President Rottfogel?
Yes.
Item 6, business agenda. 6A, action items. 6A1, motion to forward comments on the draft North Glendale Community Plan and draft Recreation Element Amendment to the Planning Commission for their consideration.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
We're calling up the PowerPoint.
Okay. Or not?
Well, I guess I'll start anyway. President Rottfogel, members of the Commission, Director Duran, staff. My name is Laura Stotler. I'm a principal planner in the Community Development Department. And for the last couple of years, the Planning Department has been putting together a North Glendale Community Plan. And we wanted to present our draft plan to you. As part of that plan, we went out and we spoke with the community. We had a number of community meetings. Those occurred in 2008 and 2009. In summer 2009, we formed, there we go, thank you. There's a community plan area in North Glendale. It's essentially the area that's north of Spar Heights. Here's a description of our community outreach. We talked with community groups, homeowners associations. We went out to the Harvest Market, spoke to people, the public there. We identified issues that were of importance to the North Glendale community. Based on those issues, we found that there were several areas where we had disagreement, so we formed an advisory committee to discuss those areas. We followed up with community open houses after we met with the advisory committee on issues facing the area, and we came up with a preliminary draft earlier this year. Preliminary draft was out for review. In June 2011, we held a community meeting to the draft, and that's what we'd like to present to you today. The plan is organized into 5 chapters, and we'd like to really focus on Chapter 3 today. Those are the principles, and these would be citywide principles. They wouldn't apply just in North Glendale, but the idea is that these would be basically overarching principles that would affect the entire community. When we met with the advisory committee, they came up with a community vision. This is their vision for North Glendale. And so this was in our minds the whole time we were drafting the community plan and what it would mean for North Glendale. When it comes to principles, the first one we had was manage growth. And if you take a look at the plan, you'll see in Chapter 3.2, we actually have a map that shows that the only areas that we're envisioning for change and growth in the area are the commercial areas. That's what we heard from the community, essentially an economic development tool. For the residential areas, we heard overwhelmingly that the desire was for preservation. I'd like to point out on Chapter 3.6, Mobility, we did do some additions. The state law now requires us to address complete streets, so you'll see that we've identified different priority street types for pedestrian, bicycle, and transit. And then we've also tried to coordinate our transit and trail connections. We have a map here that would show you what those are. For purposes of the mobility element, when we were looking at bicycle streets, we were really focusing on the Class 2 connections, the on-street trails. And you'll see in a little bit we have another section that also talks about bicycles. It's a little different. In Chapter 3.8, Community Services, Parks and Trails, we were looking at providing for high-quality parks, trails, and community centers in the area, noting recreational and cultural opportunities in North Glendale. And then again, our map, we wanted to point out, it shows our bike and trail connections. That's a little bit different from some of the documents we have right now in our general plan. And really, the purpose of the community plan is not to replace our existing elements. I know you're familiar with the open space conservation element as well as the recreation element. This is a different tool. This is a tool where we're focusing really on the neighborhoods, and that's essentially in Chapter 4. But Chapter 3 is kind of the transition. It's how do we make that join, that link between our overall general plan elements and the community, and really that's the purpose of this document. And you'll see in this one we talk about connections for bicycle. Those are really connection among parks and open spaces and community centers. In Chapter 9, access to government and services. This section really came from our long-range plan meetings that we had. It is not right now in our general plan. So this is a new section, new goals for us. Really the purpose is to encourage open meetings and open public access. And in the map that we have accompanying this item, we're identifying our public services, public facilities, not only in the city of Glendale, but then also neighboring communities that also provide service to Glendale residents, such as some of the libraries and fire stations in the area. 310, natural resources. I'd like to call your attention to this section because it does have protections for open space, indigenous trees, protections for ridgelines and streams. And one thing we would like to point out, too, that is different in this, I know you're familiar with the amount of open space we've purchased, the council has purchased over past years, and this kind of identifies some of the reasons why we would do those purchases. Yes?
If I may, Mr. President. The open spaces that we have, who owns the open spaces? Is it owned by the city? When we say protection of open spaces, is it owned by the city or it's owned by private parties?
It's owned by a variety of different people. A lot of them are in public ownership. We do have private ownership with conservation easements that we've purchased in the past. We do have subdivisions that have occurred in the past, in which case a portion of the area or certain lots were dedicated for permanent open space. So the map that we have here shows a variety of what I would consider protected open space, but it's protected from a variety of means. It's not just public ownership.
Okay, thank you.
Then we have wellness and safety. Again, this is a different section for us. We do not have this in our current general plan. This comes right out of our long-range planning efforts that we did in 2006. And this really talks about emergency preparedness, support for social services, emergency services, and reduction in hazards such as where we've had wildfires and debris flow in the past. And here would be our map accompanying that. And then really the heart of our community plan, if you take a look at the document, is Chapter 4. That's where we have a discussion of the future vision for the neighborhoods that are in North Glendale. We've broken the neighborhoods into 7 different areas, and then we've provided not only a vision for the future, but ways to implement it in architectural design guidelines. And the purpose of this section is really to meld architectural design guidelines with our goals for future development at a neighborhood level. We have our general plan now that talks about really broad-based residential uses, but it doesn't really give you what you want in individual neighborhoods. It doesn't define that. We have architectural design guidelines, single-family neighborhood guidelines, but it really doesn't drill down to what the individual neighborhoods are seeking. So the purpose of this tool is really to give additional direction to not only our decision makers, but also developers and staff, so they know what we've heard from the community and what the community wants to see. And this is just a map that shows the different neighborhoods that are outlined in our plan. And then Chapter 5 is the policy framework. Like everything else, we operate within a general plan, and we have a variety of other documents at different levels. We have Glendale plans, regional growth plans from SCAG and from the state, and then we also have federal government guidelines. And so that section really kind of outlines how this community plan fits in with those other documents. So the next step, right now we're here meeting with you to find out what comments you may have that you would wish to give to our Planning Commission. Our Planning Commission received this document on July 6th, and they're presently reviewing it. And we'll be taking this plan to other commissions, just like yours, to find out what their comments are. Obviously, there's quite a few policies that are relating to responsibilities in your commission, so we want to make sure that we hear from you, and if you have any comments you'd like to present to the Planning Commission, we'll be taking all of your comments today and presenting that to them when they meet again on this issue on August 17th. And we're envisioning that Planning Commission will give us direction on August 17th. We'll make their revisions and provide a revised document to Planning Commission for the recommendation in September 2011, and then we'll be bringing this item to Council in fall. And that concludes staff's presentation. If you have any comments, I'd be happy to take them.
I'm good.
I just had one comment. When I was looking at Section 4, it seems like some of these pictures are of Glendale and some of these pictures are not of Glendale. And I think I understand why that is, because it's a vision of what we want the neighborhoods in Glendale to look like. But it was kind of confusing when I was looking at them, and I was thinking it might be nice to have those pictures labeled in some way.
Okay.
Because I would go, well, I've seen that, but it's not in Glendale. Where is it?
Exactly. Yeah, most of them are local examples from around the area, but not necessarily Glendale.
Yeah. But nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Laura. A few quick questions for you. Are there any zone changes based on this plan, especially on Foothill Boulevard? I mean, are the zonings being changed, or is there any changes on height, density, or floor area ratios? Is there anything like that built into this plan, or not?
At this point, we have accompanying documents. The answer is yes. We are looking at doing zone changes. We have 4 areas in the plan where we are looking at zone changes. The first one would be along extending the CR zone. That would be in the Montrose Shopping Center, and that would be extending the Montrose Shopping zoning further west, so it would capture basically to Orangedale, so it would capture Trader Joe's and to the property to the north.
Right.
So it's pretty minor, but it would be making those contiguous, the zoning with Trader Joe's. Then we were also looking at changing the height on Ocean View Boulevard on the west side. That would be, right now, the heights are C3 heights up to 50 feet, same height as we presently have on Foothill. And we are proposing to create a new height district that would limit those heights to 35 feet. We're also looking at a zone change on the north side of Verdugo Road. That would be from the Montrose Shopping Park over to the freeway. And that would be taking, right now the height is 35 feet in that area. We're proposing an increase that would take it up to 45 feet. That's C2. So the uses wouldn't change, but the heights would. And the purpose of that is so the heights on the north side will match the existing heights, which are 50 feet on the south side.
Okay.
And then we are also, Foothill is the biggest issue where we're looking at doing zone change right now. What we're proposing is to do a new zone. We're looking at doing a commercial hillside zone. That's the only area in the city right now where we have topographic differences in a C3 zone. And it's caused some issues in the neighborhood with compatibility because all of our zoning for C3, it's citywide, assumes that it's essentially flat lots, whereas the topo on Foothill really poses a different problems for compatibility with neighboring uses. And so what we have is a proposal right now. It's going to the Planning Commission. I didn't bring it to you, but what we're looking at is one option keeps the height at 35 feet, actually lowers the height to 35 feet. One keeps it at 50 feet. And then option C is presented by staff that is a combination of 35 feet and 50 feet, essentially for those larger lots, those with greater frontage or those with greater depth. They could go up to 50 feet for a certain portion, up to 30% of their building. And so those are all draft. They're out there for public review. We did hear from the Foothill Chamber of Commerce. They have a proposal for a 42-foot height limit. So right now, 42-foot height limit. So we're hearing a variety of different height limits. Again, it's all out for public review. And there have been no decisions made on it. Again, just like we're bringing the document to you, we're bringing zone change options to our Planning Commission.
Right. Because I'm well aware of the challenges that we have, especially on Foothill Boulevard, where C3 zone is abutting residential, and residential, the elevation difference between the two is so high. So if you have 3 floors on Foothill, basically the people down there behind them, the houses, they're looking at 70-foot tall building basically from their backyard, and that creates a lot of challenges for the community. And that's why I wanted to know if there is a solution built into this plan or not.
Yeah, at this point, the plan doesn't have a height limit, but we talk about design.
Right.
And so the zone changes that we're looking at are designed to address some of those design issues. Really, it comes down to the issue of compatibility, which I know you're familiar with from the Design Review Board.
Also, one more last question. Are we in communications with City of LA and County and letting them know what our plans are, what are we going to do? Because I know the community wants cohesive plans throughout Foothill Boulevard, because Foothill changes from Sunland Tahanga all the way to La Cañada. And are we in communications with them to let them know what our plans are basically and get comments from them?
Yes, we've talked to city planners with the City of LA, and we've also talked to county planners, and we're aware that there is a community standards district in LA County, and so we've been talking to their planners.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah. A couple of questions. One, because this is a large document and I haven't had a chance to read through the whole thing yet, if there are comments that I want to make as an individual, I have until, the August 17th to do that?
Yes, we're encouraging people to provide comments to the Planning Department before July 31st. That will enable us to make sure all those comments are included in the packet that goes to Planning Commission to give them time to review it. But we will absolutely take comments right up to the Commission meeting, but we would encourage them before July 31st if possible. And we do have comment sheets which are on the Planning Department website. If you go online, you can go to the Planning Department, look up North Glendale Community Plan, and there's, first of all, you can see a copy of the entire plan in color. If you want to see that, there's also a timeline, and then there's a comment sheet where people can fill that out and mail it to us.
And any suggestions that will come back to us at some point for any of the parks or facilities that we own or that we have up in that area, for instance, Rock Haven?
Well, at this time, we're not proposing any changes at all to what you already have in the recreation element and open space element. We're not looking at making any changes. We're just looking at documenting them to make sure that they're accurate. We know there is a bikeway master plan which is under preparation. So our intent is that our mobility element and our trails plans that we're showing in Chapter 3 will match whatever is ultimately adopted for the bikeway master plan. As far as Rock Haven goes, I haven't heard that we have definitive direction one way or another of what we will be doing on that site, so we have noted it as public ownership, but we don't show any future use in the plan for that site.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Report.
Thank you. Then I would request that you have a motion.
Yep, we do. And is there somebody that would like to make this motion?
Yes, I would like to move that the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission's comments on the draft North Glendale Community Plan and draft Recreation Element Amendment be forwarded to the Planning Commission for their consideration.
I'll second it.
Commissioners Karapetian?
Yes.
On is absent. Patrick?
Yes.
Sharkey?
Yes.
President Rottfogel?
Yes. Thank
Item
you.
682 is a motion to note and file a report on changes in Community Services and Parks Department-wide fee schedule as approved by the City Council effective July 1st, 2011.
Hey. Welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon, President Rottfogel, Commissioners, staff, the community at home. My name is Teresa Alexanian, Administrative Analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department. Wanted to bring you up to speed on a citywide user fee study that took place as part of the fiscal year 11-12 budget process. From, I believe, the last commission meeting, I had done a presentation on the status of the budget, and there were a couple of, the city had taken a couple of measures to help fill the $18 million gap, and one of those measures was a citywide fee study. We engaged the services of, we meaning the city, engaged the services of Wilden Financial Services to conduct a citywide comprehensive user fee study to ensure that sufficient revenues, the city had sufficient revenues to meet the service obligations and that user fees are set proportionate to the cost of providing the services. There were two methods of analysis. One was the case study method, and the other one was a programmatic approach. Our department took a programmatic approach where we compared the cost of providing our services and programs to the revenue that we were able to bring in, and we did a comparison to see where we could recover some of the costs. This was to try to help the general fund. And it was to identify how much of the general fund is subsidizing programs and where the department can increase fees for cost recovery. As part of this study, staff initially recommended that we increase fees by the Consumer Price Index, which was the 3.3% for the last year, and then we went out and did a benchmark study to compare to surrounding cities. And for majority of the fees, we used Burbank, Pasadena, and Santa Clarita. Before Civic Auditorium, staff used Pasadena, Culver City, and Santa Monica. Exhibit 1, which was attached to the report, provides a breakdown of all the fees that we propose to increase. And we meaning the department, presented this to City Council. Normally, we come to the commission for to increase or set new fees, but because this was done on a citywide level and it was as part of the budget process, we didn't have time to come to the commission to ask for your recommendation or approval before we went to City Council. This was actually, Council adopted the citywide fee schedule as part of the budget study session and approving the budget as of July 1st. We wanted to make sure that Commission was aware that staff proposed 8 new fees, 41 fee increases, and 2 fee removals. Council approved all but one, and the one fee, it was a new fee that was not approved, was the approved community youth group field lights during season. Basically, that was a per participant per season fee that staff had proposed, $5 per participant per season, that would be charged to the youth leagues, and it was to help the department recover part of the costs for utilities, water, electricity on the fields, but Council felt that they did not want to impose a charge on the youth leagues, and so that was the one fee that was not passed as part of this process. So we would like for the Commission to approve a motion to note and file the fee, the new fee schedule for the department effective July 1st, as approved by Council. Here for any questions you may have.
Are there any questions?
I have no questions.
I just have one, and I think it's more for Jess. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe I read something at one point that the Commission actually sets fees and not City Council, and that's in charter. So instead of noting and filing, shouldn't we be approving I mean, it's technical, but I don't want somebody to come back to the city and say that we didn't use the right process and all the commission did was note and file.
Yes. Chairman Rothfogel, members of the commission, that was a question that we had as well. So we did confer with our city attorney's office, and actually Teresa had the conversation with the city attorney, so she could probably answer this question better than I can. But I think the bottom line is that because it was part of the broader budget deliberation process, and it was one of the strategies that was adopted by the city council, there are some exceptions where the council could supersede that charge that usually belongs to the Parks, Recreation, Community Services Commission. But
if I may add, Jess and President Rothfogel, the municipal code actually does say the commission could set fees by resolution where it's not set by council. So if council by ordinance or resolution sets fees, then that supersedes what commission. Normally, yes, our commission does set our fees, and we may even have one on today's agenda, I'm not sure, but if that throughout the year, we will still be coming back to commission to change our fees, and then that will get updated into the annual citywide fee schedule. But every year, effective July 1st, I believe Finance is going to take a citywide schedule, which will include all the fees as adopted by the commissions or council from the prior year. So the fees that you do approve throughout the year will get incorporated. But as Jess explained, because this was done as part of the budget cycle and it was done citywide, council did already approve it effective July 1st. So that's why we asked commission to note and file, because technically we wouldn't be able to make a change if commission was not to approve at this point.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that we were doing it
and we
right.
agree. We actually did the research because in talking, Jess and I were thinking, do we need commission approval before we go to council, and how do we do the timing, because everything was happening so fast.
I will say that Teresa is so thorough that I feel very confident in making this motion. I'm confident you're within the guidelines of the charter. So,
yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission approve to note and file the report on changes in Community Services and Parks Department wide fee schedule as approved by the City Council effective July 1st, 2011.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Scarpetian?
Yes.
On his absent, Patrick?
Yes.
Sharkey?
Yes.
President Rothfogel?
Yes.
Item 6B, reports for information only. 6B1, student art display policy status report.
Welcome back.
This is like a sitcom.
As part of Teresa Alexanian, I'm not sure if I have to restate my name for the record, Administrative Analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department. As a response to a request from a student taking art classes through the department's Lifetime Learning Program, art classes through the Lifetime Learning Program, the department started to look at forming a policy, offering display space for students taking art classes and or instructors instructing an art class through the Community Services and Parks Department. The mission or purpose of the policy would be to offer display space at community services and parks facilities free of charge for students enrolled in or instructors providing lessons for an art class as part of the lifelong learning program offered through community services and parks. Visual art enhances public spaces and invites public participation and interaction. Student art displays will encourage public participation in the arts and allow students and instructors to recognize the value of their work and art in general through public appreciation. The department would also like to use this opportunity to publicize the classes that we offer through the Lifelong Learning Program and encourage participation in the arts. We just wanted to let Commission know that the department is working on putting together an art policy, an art display policy for students that are taking our classes. The policy is in draft form and it is being reviewed by legal. Some of the sections that will be included as part of the policy are who can apply for the use of space and the types of acceptable artwork, proposal submission timelines, criteria for the evaluation, how it will be approved, and how long it will take. We are planning to come back to Commission with the draft policy for recommendation and review by the Commission, but we just wanted to update the Commission that we are currently in the process of preparing a policy that will be available. We did start a department-wide policy, and at some point we will go back to a department-wide policy or maybe even a city-wide policy where art can be displayed. But there is a little more that would go into department-wide that would be open to the public because of it wouldn't be considered student art. It could be professional art at that point, and the liability issues for the department and the artists. So this is kind of a preview into what might be coming later citywide or department-wide. So if you have any questions at this point, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6B2, Pacific Community Center Annual Report.
Commissioners, I'd like to introduce Onig Bolanikian. He is the Community Service Supervisor at Pacific Community Center.
He needs no introduction.
Okay.
Thank you. President Rofogel, members of the Commission, my name is Onig. Once again, I supervise Pacific Community Center, and attached in your packet you'll find our annual report. But what I'd like to go over today is things what we do at Pacific. I like to basically promote our facility and program to you and the viewers. Pacific Community Center, we opened September 3rd of 2003. It's a joint use facility or a shared use facility with Glendale Unified School District, Edison Elementary School, and Pacific Park Library. We have rentals, classes, day camps, special events. We have services such as detailed event planning, event layout advice, logistical planning, and staff to work your event. Our reservations, we're booked almost every day. We have a reservation. Last year we took in 541 permits. Those are actual permits processed. Most of the permits were recurring reservations with multiple dates on each permit. We have indoor facilities such as meeting rooms, 2 gymnasiums, a state-of-the-art computer lab, recreation room, and a kitchenette. Multi-purpose meeting rooms can be used for conferences, lunch. The room on the left, which is our Oak Room, we use that for our senior meals program, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, between 11 and 1. The STAR program also uses it Tuesdays between 4 and 7. The room on the right is the Sycamore Room. That's used by private groups. The city manager's office uses the room for the Rosie camp in the summer. We have our recreation room. We have 2 pool tables, a ping pong table, and also a foosball table. Very popular with our young patrons and teens, and also our seniors. We have a lot of seniors using the facility. They both use ARC and Pacific. And we have our gymnasium. Gymnasium is very popular. Monday through Friday, the gymnasium is booked either with classes, senior exercise classes. Now we have our Cool Days summer day camp in our gym. We have classes at night, karate, kumdo. We have our contract classes. So between Monday through Friday and Saturdays, the gym is being used 9 a.m. To 9 p.m. The picture on the left is our arts and science room. Glendale Unified uses the room between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Monday through Friday during the school year, and then after 3 p.m. we use the room. For the summer months, we use it for our cool days camp. The picture on the bottom is our Red Bud room. We use it for our senior classes, meeting rooms, birthdays, and so on. Outdoor facilities, we have a soccer field. Once again, that's a joint use area of the complex. We have 2 picnic pavilions, a baseball field, outside basketball court, a lunch shelter, a playground with a water feature, and an outdoor terrace. Here are 2 picnic shelters that are used Saturdays and Sundays, fully booked year-round. We have our baseball field, upper left-hand corner, and on the right-hand we have our newly renovated soccer field that we're hoping to use end of August. Thanks to our Parks Department for taking care of that. We also have special events. The events up there on the slide are co-sponsored by our department with the approval from our department director. We co-sponsor the following events. They either pay the nonprofit rate or just pay for employees to work the event. The Cesar Chavez event is the city manager's event where we support logistical setup. The National Night Out is police department event with the Southwest Glendale Partnership. It's a nonprofit group in the Pacific Addison area. National Night Out for this year will be August 2nd, 2011, Tuesday between 6 and 8. Come out, we're going to have activities and music for kids. The Glendale Health Festival. We had our first annual health festival, the Armenian Medical Society of California, with the assistance of Glendale Memorial and Glendale Adventist, organized the health festival. We also have the Glendale Healthy Kids Health Expo in April. They had it twice so far at Pacific. And Padres Contra El Cancer, we have the annual Posada. They rent it out. It's a nonprofit group. They rent out the facility. They've been using our center for their participants since December of 2005. And National Charities League, they collected last year over $47,000 at their rummage sale. That was at Pacific, and donated to Glendale Unified Schools and other nonprofit organizations in Glendale. And of course, we assist in the GUSD State of Schools breakfast in facility setup and the Lanterman Regional Social Forum. Here are some pictures of our events. The upper left-hand corner is one of our Cesar Chavez event. The picture on the bottom is our first annual Glendale Health Festival. And the picture on the right, we have our annual holiday posada, the setup that we had last December. And then this is our setup for State of the Schools, and on the right, our annual holiday posada. Center-based programs, we have Tot Time. Tot Time is a free drop-in program for tiny tots, ages 2 to 5 years old. We have Tot Time Tuesdays and Thursdays in our gymnasium between 10 and 12. Staff, we put out toys and toys that will develop their motor skills. Free of charge. They come in and run around all over the gym, get tired, they go home and take their nap. We have our drop-in basketball and volleyball Monday through Saturday for youth, teens, and adults. Times do vary, but it's every day. We have our lifelong learning classes. We have karate, ballet, dance, arts and crafts, basketball. We also have a basketball camp, actually, that started this week. And very successful program. The next one is Cool Days Kinder Camp. This is a 10-week program in the summer, 3 weeks in December for the holiday break, and 1 week during Easter or spring break. We have 90-plus kids coming to our camp. They're all over the entire facility, broken up into groups. Very successful. We're booked. We were booked June 15 for 10 weeks. So we have a waiting list now. So if any of the parents are interested in signing their kids up on the waiting list, we are taking names. And The next one is our recreation room. Like I mentioned before, we have table tennis, foosball, and pool. Here are some pictures of our day camp program. Our kinder camp is also very successful, the picture on the top right-hand corner. And then our basketball program, right-hand corner, the bottom picture. And we have the Glendale Rocks, which is our climbing wall program. We took over the climbing wall program November 1st of 2010, and we made it into a party package. Commission approved a reservation package, and it's very successful. We're getting calls every single day for the climbing wall. Standard package includes 2 employees, the climbing wall and safety equipment. We work special events, birthday parties, GUSD sites. Our last event we worked was cruise night. We had over 250 participants, using the wall. Very successful, and hopefully we can expand and have a reservation. Our goal is to have a reservation rental every weekend on a Saturday or Sunday for the climbing wall. It's a very popular program.
Where do people call? Do they call you at?
They call the front desk. I'm gonna. The next slide, I believe, is the number. Norma Valles, she's in charge of the program, and the requests are just, especially with Glendale Unified PTA, we have a rental with Glendale Unified EELP program. We have 3 different rates: the standard rate, nonprofit rate, and the commercial rate. Nonprofit rate is always approved by our director. The commercial rate, if basically it's a fundraiser and a private company would like to use the wall as a fundraiser, then we would charge them the commercial rate, which is 150%, actually 50% more than the standard rate.
What if the PTA wants to use it for a fundraiser? Which rate would they pay in that case?
If they have a 501c3 status and they're nonprofit, and of course approved by the director, they will pay the nonprofit rate, which is $225 for 2 hours.
And what is the standard rate?
Standard rate is 300.
300.
And the commercial rate, I believe, is 350.
Okay. Very good deal.
And if you have any questions, they can call 818-548-4098. Talk to me or Norma in regards to facilities, classes, special events. We're open Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And Fridays and Saturdays, we're open 9 to 5. Any questions?
It's a great facility.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's a great facility, and sounds like you're having all kinds of fun and doing all kinds of good things down there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Did I miss Halloween?
Yeah, actually, Halloween Hoopla was one of our events that we put on. Next year...
Are we still going to have that?
Well, next year we're not going to have it, but Glendale Unified, the teachers at Edison School, they're going to have the event.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
All right. That's popular, too.
Yes, that is popular. Right. Any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you as well, because my 4-year-old attends the kinder camp, and she loves it. It's an awesome program. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, kinder camp was 9 to 12, Monday through Friday last year. We extended it another hour, 9 to 1. We were hoping to extend it 9 to 5, 9 to 4 like our cool days, but due to licensing and you have to be licensed by the state, we decided to keep it 9 to 1 for now until we further research the licensing procedure.
I can only speak to state of the schools, the breakfast, but that event has started at Pacific Edison and has increased and gotten better every year. And I think that Laurel will agree with me that a major part of the reason it gets better is because of the professionalism of your staff and the support that they give us to help us pull that off. So I wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great staff over there.
We'll be there in September also, I believe, for the next state.
October
6th or 5th.
Something like that, yes.
Yeah.
October 6th, you're right.
I'm sorry.
All right, is there anything else? No other questions?
No.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What is next?
Thank you.
Item 6B3, budget update.
Okay, Mr. Duran.
President, Sharkey, members of the commission.
President.
Actually, Commissioner Sharkey's question is a good segue to this. topic. Not to belabor the budget that was approved this year, but I did want to do a final wrap-up. The last meeting of the Commission on June 20th, you received an overview of the proposed budget, including a summary of the proposed reductions or the recommended reductions. I think that report was provided by Teresa Alexanian. And so I am here to make it official. On June 28th, the City Council did approve the city budget and for the Parks, Community Services and Parks Department, including all of the recommendations with a few revisions. Those revisions include the department had proposed a recommended reducing the Rose Float, the $130,000 cost of the Rose Float. The City Council decided that it would take a month and advertise to the community or promote to the community that the city is interested in taking private contributions to see if the community could step up and raise enough money to fund the Rose Float, meaning the $50,000 that the city would normally contribute to the Rose Float. And I think the jury's still out on that. It's thus far it's going very slowly, but it's possible that towards the end of the month we may get some very major donations from maybe some of the corporations out in Glendale. The Montrose Christmas Parade, we had proposed the $10,000 that comes out of the department's budget to eliminate that. The City Council decided that that was a budget item, an expense in a program that was worth keeping. So City Council restored the $10,000 for the Montrose Christmas Parade, which goes to the Montrose Chamber of Commerce, I believe. The council decided or requested that we reduce our skate park budget from $172,000 to $100,000. So we eliminated one full-time staff position to accommodate that. That's a revision because that was not a recommendation by the department, but it's a recommendation that the council came up with on their own. And as Teresa alluded to, as part of the fee schedule, we had how many revisions to our fee schedule? About 50, including increases and 41 increases and 8 new. And hidden in that package was a new fee that we would impose on the youth leagues, which, as Teresa said earlier, would be $5 per participant. So if you had a team of 15 youth, that was $75 a year that you would pay, which would help to offset our utility costs for lighting the ball fields. That recommendation by the department was not approved by the City Council, so the City Council deleted that from our fee schedule, again, as Teresa alluded to. The most notable reductions in order of size was the Open Space and Trails program, which was $262,000, and that involved 2 full-time positions and 160% hourly position. We had $243,000 in what I'm calling a transfer of charges. This is staff that operate programs that are charged to the enterprise fund. However, the staff charges are charged to the general fund. So we decided to charge those staff charges also to the enterprise fund, and that would save the city $243,000, so we did that. The aquatics program we reduced by $130,000, and that was by virtue of eliminating the aquatics program at Glendale High School and at Crescenta Valley. That saved us $130,000 primarily in lifeguard and supervision time. We had $99,000 in reductions for special events, which includes the extra holiday programming we have throughout the year at all of our community centers, including extra Christmas programming, Halloween programming, parent night out programming, any special added programming. In addition to just the core operation of our community centers, we proposed as discretionary programs, and so those were approved by City Council. The Day Labor Center was a $90,000 line item in the department's budget that we proposed as discretionary that was approved by the council. And then our leisure guide, we estimated the leisure guide budget to distribute, I think, 17,000 hard copies of the leisure guide 4 times a year was a cost of about $130,000. So we proposed to reduce $62,000 and keep the remainder to keep staff. And we made a commitment to go totally electronic with the leisure guide. And we also have a transition plan for those that would have a harder time making that transition. We will allow some time to still be able to either download hard copies or have a smaller number of printed hard copies for a special mailing list for those that still need the hard copy of the leisure guide. So those are the highlights of our budget and our budget reductions in total. Our budget was reduced by $1.4 million. Our reductions resulted in needing to lay off 5 salaried positions, and so we've done that. We know that we can come out of this leaner and stronger, and we will. We had some ideas of how we can operate programs more efficiently. Otherwise, we and the staff would not have developed these recommendations, but we did, and so we're regrouping now, and we're reconfiguring our programs. Our first priority was to keeping the community centers open and adequately staffed, keeping our parks, our open space, well-maintained, safe, and secure. And so we didn't want to make any recommendations that would infringe on those basic core operations. And so the list of discretionary programs that we developed was based on those priorities. And so hopefully we've achieved that, and hopefully next year we won't be having to face the same types of decisions, and or if we are, hopefully next year there'll be a little bit more empathy on our department, and there's not much more that we can do. We decided to take the task to heart, and we took it seriously, and we did what we could. If we're asked to do much more, it will be having to close down community centers. So hopefully it won't get to that. Hopefully there'll be more forewarning for us so we can have a more meaningful discussion with the commission far in advance. This was the first time that the city approached its budget development process the way that it did, in terms of having each department identify and break out every single program and function in its department. And of course, our department, we had a lot. We had a long list because that's what we do. We do programs out in the community. And so you probably noticed we had a much longer list than other departments. So this is what we ended up with. That was our experience this year. But we'll be in okay shape.
Questions? I've got 2 questions. One, the $250,000 that was transferred from trails and open space into the enterprise fund, does that mean that those jobs were saved? Did I misunderstand, or did I?
The open space and trails program has been eliminated, and the staff positions have been eliminated. In addition to that, we have primarily hourly staff that run our enterprise programs, like our day camps, some of the programs that Onig mentioned that were charged to the general fund. Well, we decided to begin to charge them to the enterprise fund, to the entrepreneurial program, which would save the city the general fund money. So that was part of our strategy to be able to contribute more to the city's deficit.
Okay, and I have no idea what this would look like, but in the leisure guide, we've talked about other places like ball fields that we wanted to advertise. Would we at any point consider advertising in the leisure guide? And I have no recommendations or ideas on what that would look like, but is that a thought? It's a thought, but is it a good one?
That would come under the signage policy and what we can or cannot advertise. And right now, the policy is that there can be no advertisements within brochures that are distributed. So, the city is looking at that. We're looking at that. We're bringing back a new policy on signage and banners for all our parks. We have that currently at the skate park and at the sports complex as our test cases to see what we can and can't do. So what we're going to be doing is taking a look at that policy and then bringing it back to you for further consideration on signage at our parks and other revenue-producing opportunities that we're all sitting down trying to come up with.
Okay.
On Dugmagian, since we don't have park naturalists up there, are the police going to be monitoring that? Problems like vandalism, or is it just left there?
Commissioner Sharkey, right now there is no plan for increased assistance from the police department. So we're going to have to figure out a way for self-policing. My understanding is that the park will maintain its current hours that it's open. We've, since Dave Ahern left the city, I've assigned Mark Sturdivant to be in charge of our open space and trails program. In fact, I thought he would be here to talk a little bit about the current status as part of the CIP activities report, but maybe he'll join us later.
Yes.
Quick question. Basically, what percentage of our budget is cut right now?
Our budget was $14 million, so 10%.
10% is cut. And by the way, Mark is a great choice. Congratulations.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, what is next?
Item 6B4, development impact fees.
Well, look who's back.
It's my lucky day.
No, it's our lucky day.
It's our lucky day.
In September of 2007, the City Council approved an ordinance and resolution allowing the city to impose development impact fees on new residential, commercial, and industrial developments to mitigate the cost of developing new or rehabilitating existing parks and recreational facilities, developing new libraries, and or adding to library collections in order to maintain adequate park and library services for those residents that would require these services. As part of this ordinance, along with this ordinance, they approved a resolution which set the fee schedule. The fees, developers are allowed to pay the fees currently in two phases. The first one is paid 50% at permit issuance, which is when they pull permits to start developing a project, and the second 50% is paid at certificate of occupancy, when they have completed the project and now are allowed to occupy it. The current economic downturn continues to significantly impact developers in the city. And in November of 2010, and it was amended in May of 2011, Council approved to delay the scheduled fee increase. In 2007, when the fee schedule was adopted, it was done as a 3-year phase-in. So it started off as a $3,500 fee, and then it was supposed to increase to $7,000. But Council approved to delay that fee increase until January. To assist the developers because the fee is basically based on residential developments. It's based on the number of units On non-residential, it's based on the square footage. So to help the developers in obtaining financing, we delayed the scheduled increase. Well, the economy hasn't really picked up as much, and so developers have asked, and staff plans to go to council, a joint council redevelopment agency meeting tomorrow, to propose that we allow developers to pay the development impact fees in full at the current rates through December of 2011. The fee is scheduled to increase in January of 2012. It's going to double. So right now it's $3,500, for example, for residential developments per unit. It's going to double to $7,000 per unit in January. And staff is proposing to allow the developers to pay the full fee instead of 50% at permit issuance and 50% at certificate of occupancy, to pay the full fee without a refund. So the city would benefit because we would be getting the full fee instead of 50% before December. And potentially these projects may or may not proceed to pull permits after plan check. So we are allowing them to pay the full fee at plan check versus permit issuance, and they're foregoing refund. So normally per ordinance, the developer has a year from the time of payment to request a refund if the project is canceled for any reason, if there hasn't been any development on the site. So the developer would forego that right to request a refund. So if you look at the numbers as far as how much we would be bringing in if council was to approve the proposed proposed fee schedule or the time of payment for the fee, we would be bringing in, if 50% of the fee is paid in 2011, that would mean we would have $1.2 million in revenue if all 5 proposed projects were to pull permits. If they paid 100% of the fee prior to January 2012, which would be fee increases, that would mean $2.5 million in revenue for the city. If we go with the current ordinance and the current fee schedule, which is to allow them to make the payment not allow them to make the full payment at plan check, we could potentially bring in $5 million, but then we are risking some of these projects not going through to permit issuance. And some of these projects might cancel and not be able to build, and therefore they would be asking for a refund. So even though we would be able to bring in $5 million from these developments, but that's not guaranteed, whereas $2.5 million would be guaranteed prior to January 2012 if council was to approve the proposed, it's not really an amendment, but the proposed adjustment to the time of payment. So this is something that we will be presenting to council tomorrow. And if they approve, then the developers, through a statutory development agreement, would be able to benefit from this. It's a benefit for both the city and the developers, because obviously they would be paying 100% less on their development impact fees for the developers, even though they would be foregoing the refund. But for the city, we would be able to use those funds. We would have those funds at hand at the end of December to be able to use for future development. And as we know, our budget, even our CIP budget, has been cut. So this would really help the department, both library and parks, if council was to approve the proposal by staff. Available for any questions you may have, if you have any questions. Yes.
Yes, hi. I want to understand this a little bit better.
Sure.
The fees today is $3,500 per unit.
Right.
And that's until end of the year.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Right,
And
up until December 2011.
So if the developer wants to pull a permit today, they can pay half today and half at the occupancy, certificate of occupancy. Am I correct?
Right. if they were to pull permits
Prior to December 2011.
right, prior to December.
Okay. And after that, what is the proposal again? If they choose to pay the entire amount, like in January, or because some of them are maybe in the process of plan check, and they obtain the permits in, let's say, February of 2012. So your proposal is to give the developer the option to pay the entire $3,500 at plan check, $3,500, not double the amount.
Right.
If they choose not to do that, they pay $3,500 anyways, half at plan check, half
the
out.
only thing is some of these projects will not be able to go to permit, it won't be done with plan check and won't be ready to pull permits until after December. So
That's
this
what I'm
isn't
saying.
right. If they were able to go through plan check and be able to pull permits before January 2012, then they would still pay the $3,500
Right.
for the first half of the fee, unless they want to pay the full in fee. Because technically, by ordinance, they could pay only 50% at permit issuance and 50% at certificate of occupancy.
And total fee is $3,500.
Total fee.
Okay, so after January, the fees increase to
$7,000, correct.
And the proposal is to give the developers an incentive to pay $3,500 in advance, right, at plan check, and
Correct.
keep the fee $3,500 instead of $7,000.
Correct. Up through December, right. So technically, they can't pay the fee. They can't pay the fee unless it's permit issuance. So what we're proposing is to allow them to pay the fee at plan check.
Oh, at plan check, not at...
Right.
Okay, now I
Right.
got you. Okay.
Because technically...
I lost you there because...
Right. Technically, they can pay the full fee at permit issuance if they choose to, but some of these projects will not be ready to pull
I got you.
permits
At plan
until
check,
after.
not-
Right.
Okay.
So we're proposing to allow them to pay the full fee at plan
Plan
check
check.
with a statutory development
Got it.
agreement.
And
I
it's,
got it.
and it's non-refundable.
And it's not refundable.
refundable.
So what the developer is then doing is rolling the dice that they're going to pay the lower fee in 2011, non-refundable, and then with the roll of the dice, they're hoping that everything goes all the way through, and they're going to end up saving the extra $3,500.
Per unit, yes.
But not all of, we know that not 100% of those are going, so we're also rolling the dice, I guess, that the amount of money that we're going to make on those that don't go all the way through will offset the higher fees. And we're trying to help the developers also. But we're also taking a risk.
Right, because there's potentially the chance that these projects will not go past plan check. So if they can't find somebody to fund their projects, then they won't be able to go past plan check and won't be able to pull permits. So some projects might die off at that point, which case we would not be getting any fees, because if they don't pull permits, they don't have to pay the fee. So the developer is taking a chance and paying the full fee, hoping that since they're only going to be paying the $3,500, for example, per unit versus the $7,000, they'll reduce the dollar amount that they would need to be able to move to the next stage.
Teresa, and how many projects are we talking about? And we've calculated.
This would be open to all projects, so any developer that would like to enter a statutory development agreement with the city would be able to do this, but we have 5 that we are working on, we meaning the City of Glendale with Redevelopment Agency, that the developers have proposed this, and they say that this would help them be able to proceed.
So they're in a planning process at this
Right,
time.
they're either at plan check or about to go to plan check, and so they would like to be able to pay the full fee at that point to continue instead of possibly miss the deadline for the December. Because if they finish plan check and are ready to pull permits, like you said, they won't need this. But if they can't get through plan check and are not ready to pull permits, then they would have to pay the higher fee in January.
And these are for the projects only in redevelopment?
No, this would be
So-
open to anybody that would be, right, that would want to enter a statutory development agreement. And redevelopment would know probably a little bit more as to, I think there's a fee involved with that too, if I'm not mistaken, too. But
It's an in lieu
Again,
fee.
I'm not sure if,
And for a developer, this would conceivably be, real money, because it's not $3,500 period, it's $3,500 per unit, or $7,000 per unit. So I think this is a good idea to help the developers and at the same time, help the city.
right.
Especially things the developers support it.
Basically
so.
double the amount that they would pay. For example, one of the projects would pay, instead of $835,000, they'd have to pay $1.6 million. So it's a real savings for some of these projects that
Becomes
have
real money. Yeah, that's
number
great.
of units or commercial square footage. So it really would help them.
$830,000, you said?
$835,000 versus the $1.6 million.
So they have about 280 units in their project?
I believe so, if that's what the math comes out to. I don't have the number of units on me, because it's commercial and residential, so I don't have the breakdown here.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
So the fees are being increased next year for sure. It's the council.
Right, it's by resolution. It was a 3-year phase-in. So in 2007, when council approved and adopted this ordinance and the resolution, the fees were scheduled to increase actually last year, but because of this of the amendment and the fee schedule, they're going to be increasing in January of this year, and then it will increase again in November.
And that's the final increase, as with this resolution. The November increase is the final increase?
November 30th, I think the $7,000, and then December 1st, November 30th would be the end of that, and then December 1st of 2013, I believe, is the final increase, which is $10,500 for residential. And then at that point, it's not scheduled to increase. This was a phase-in schedule because at the time that we did the study, council did not want to impose the fees that we were supposed to be imposing on developments in the city because it was way too high based on the study. So they decided to do a phase-in so that it would increase incrementally instead of imposing that fee at the time. So technically, the fees that are in effect currently are a lot lower than what the study showed that they should be for the city.
And comparing to our neighboring cities, are we higher than them, lower than them at this time? Are we in the same page? Or?
I think we're higher in some and lower in others because of the phase-in. A lot, some of them are already past the 10s, but it's because we should have been there, but it was an incremental increase. So I think at the end of the scheduled increase, will probably be comparable.
Great, thank you. Good report.
Thank you.
What is next?
Item 65, monthly activity reports at ACDBG homeless programs.
Good afternoon, President Ralph Vogel, members of the Parks Commission, Yvette Sonvalian, homeless coordinator for the City of Glendale. I have a homeless program activity report related to the local winter shelter program. We were before you a couple of months ago regarding the update of the 2011 proposed project. Last September, City Council directed staff to develop a local winter shelter program which will house 50 homeless individuals within the city of Glendale. This would be separate and not the similar project which is funded through the Los Angeles Housing Service Authority, LAHSA, which is a regional winter shelter. So our local program will substitute the winter shelter regional program. This project is a collaborative effort between the city of Glendale and city of Burbank. We are going before council to request approval for the project and appropriate funding the next couple of weeks in August. Currently, the total project funding is about $151,000. The project will be funded between both cities, Glendale and Burbank. On May 26th, Burbank City Council approved a $50,000 allocation towards the project. We are going before council to request funding through our emergency shelter grant, and a $50,000 increase we received this year through the emergency shelter grant, and the $50,000 gap we are going to either apply through the LAHSA's funding, or request funding from City Council from general revenue. We're requesting funding or somehow council to give us direction how to fill the gap in terms of the funding. The big difference between the local winter shelter and the regional shelter, again, these are homeless clients that will be given priority within the City of Glendale and City of Burbank. There will be an intensive case management involved with the clients here. We have identified a service operator who's Urban Initiatives, who has a lot of experience with homelessness. And at the end, as a result of the local program, City of Glendale or Continuum of Care funding will be used for transitional or permanent supportive housing for the individuals that will be graduating from the winter shelter. We will be setting aside funding from the economic relief funds, the rapid rehousing program, as well as our existing permanent supportive housing programs for the chronically homeless. If there's any questions you may have about the winter shelter, I will be happy to answer them now. We are scheduled to go to council on August 2nd, I believe, for the request of the approval of the project and direction as it relates to the funding. If approved, the local winter shelter program will be operating December 15th, 2011, and will go through March 15th, 2012. And it will serve approximately about 50 unduplicated persons at any point in time.
What's the location? Do we know yet? Have we identified?
We haven't been able to identify the location, so in May we requested LASA's approval to utilize the Glendale Armory for our local program. The cost to operate the Glendale Armory is about $40,000, which was not originally budgeted in our program. So we will be requesting their funding from them to subsidize the armory and their approval. Currently, LASA is considering to allow Glendale to utilize the armory, but we haven't yet gone forward to request the funding in terms of the funding for the rent.
Currently, they use the armory, right?
No, the regional winter shelter program was operated out of the armory, right. And LASA funded the cost for the site. Also, the funding came through the LASA for another operator to operate the regional winter shelter program. Initially, when we were developing the project, we were hoping that we will utilize either a church or a local gymnasium or an agency to host a smaller program, so we only budgeted about $2,000 for rent. Since we're unable to identify the site within Glendale Burbank community, we proposed LASA to utilize the armory for our project.
Any other questions?
I just want to say that it sounds like a great program. It's serving the people that live in Glendale and have a commitment here and have a commitment to the local communities, so I hope you can get it worked out.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much. What is next?
Item 6B5B, Workforce Development.
Good afternoon, President Rockfogle and Commissioners. Can you pull up? Oh, great, thanks. I want to try something a little bit different on my report today. First of all, let me give you some good news. Our agency recently won a grant from the state of California for $465,000 to assist veterans that need employment. So we're going to be serving 112 veterans with training and employment services. But I wanted to kind of give you a glimpse of what we do in workforce. We're led by a 30-member board of directors, most of whom are business leaders in the community in Glendale and Burbank. And they have the task of making decisions about where to put our federal and state funding every year. And just as an example, we get, the past 2 years, we've gotten about $7 million of funding. So they have to make prudent strategic decisions about what industries to focus on, what areas of staff should be researching, basically where to put our money that would best position people in the community that are looking for work to land jobs and obtain careers. And so one of the things the staff does on a regular basis is provide labor market information about what's happening with our local economy. Just last Thursday, we provided our board of directors with a presentation about what happened to the Verdugo economy after the recession. Go to the next one. Thanks. Just as some background, in the United States, the recession started officially in December of 2007 and ended June 2009. What's interesting is that the unemployment rate doubled during that period, but 2 years into the recovery, the unemployment rate is pretty close to what it was at its peak in the recession. LA County's rate, interestingly, actually increased during the recovery period. The most recent jobs report, only 18,000 new jobs were added in June. Most of those in the private sector. We're starting to see this trend where government jobs, we're losing a lot of government jobs, and that's unfortunately going to continue as the budgets of school districts and cities start to deal with large deficits. So the national unemployment rate actually increased in June slightly. The Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor, actually has a category called U6, which includes people that are looking for full-time work but couldn't find it, so they take temp jobs or part-time jobs. So when you include the unemployed people together with that population, basically the unemployment rate is about 16%, and that's 25 million Americans. That translates into 7 job seekers for every job opening that comes up in our country. Why are we having this situation with the job market in the short term? Issues like the Japan tsunami, the problems in Greece, Italy, and other European countries has really put employers in a position of being concerned about making commitments to hire, even locally. China has recently tried to cool their economy. They were having double-digit growth, but recently have gone under double-digit, and employers are concerned that trend might continue too dramatically. They've been generating a lot of purchases of U.S. products in the last few years based on their needs in their economy, and if they start to falter, that could create problems in the U.S. Also, there's a lot of concern about the existing U.S. budget deficit. So all these factors are adding up to hold back employer commitments on new hires. Longer-term problems, 70% of the U.S. economy is made up of consumers, and because of the recession, consumers are a little bit skittish at this point about making purchasing commitments, so we're seeing that trend continue. Also, a lot of the stimulus that the government was providing to the banks to stabilize the banks, that money has actually not gone out to generate loans, so it's not generating the type of growth in business that would result in jobs. Some signs of hope. Private companies are making a lot of money since the end of the recession because of the cuts that they made in their workforce. They're experiencing a lot of productivity. They have now about $2 trillion in cash on their books that hopefully will be reinvested in the U.S. economy and generate a lot of jobs. That's one thing we're hoping for. Loan demand is starting to pick up. One local trend that we've seen is that the number of people coming in for service at the job center, the number of visits has dropped. From the height of the recession, we were getting 10,000 visits at our facility in Glendale per month, and now it's more like 6,000.
Was that back in 2009 then, the 10,000 visits?
Yeah. What does this mean locally? And when I say local, I'm talking about Burbank, Glendale, and La Cañada. Our unemployment rate actually more than doubled during that period to 9.5% at the height of the recession. And ironically, 2 years into the recovery, that rate has actually gone up locally. City of Glendale, our rate is outside of Burbank, Glendale, La Cañada, just the Glendale rate is 10.4%. So Glendale's pretty high. Thanks. Just a few issues about our local government, our local industries. One key industry that we have locally, motion pictures and entertainment, that industry actually did pretty well. During the recession, it only fell 5% locally. And just in probably the last 6 months or so, we've seen that employment area increase pretty rapidly. I'm not exactly sure of the reason why, but that area is doing really well. One thing to note is that entertainment undoubtedly will be the fastest growing industry in Glendale in over the next 10 years. Also, entertainment has an effect on other industries such as restaurant, service industries. And a key thing to remember about entertainment is that at the Glendale Creative Campus, they brought together all of the digital subsidiaries of Disney. And that project is just about, I think, halfway through. But people are starting to note that entertainment is really moving towards the area of tablets and mobile computing. And Pricewaterhouse Cooper says that this area will be growing by 60% in the next 5 years. So that's a good sign for the local economy, especially in Glendale. Healthcare, the employment was actually stable throughout the recession, and Glendale has 3 hospitals concentrated in one city, which is really unique. You really don't see that type of concentration of healthcare in one city. And hospitals have actually been expanding over the last few years, so they've been adding a lot of new jobs. There is some uncertainty about the future of healthcare because of things like the Obama legislation and the future of Medicare. And also our manufacturing area, it lost 10% of its workforce locally, but that has been the industry that's led the U.S. out of recession, and so we're hoping that that's an area that will continue to grow. Retail is one of the biggest industries in Glendale. They saw 11% loss, and for Glendale in particular, they have a big auto dealership sector, and that took a very big hit during the recession. They lost 23% of their workforce during the recession. Finance and real estate previously used to be pretty large industries in Glendale, but unfortunately they took big losses in employment during that period, and the outlook is not good unless the housing market really takes a turn, which it likely isn't in the next 5 years. Near term, these are the industries we think will do well over the next year. But longer term, there's a lot of uncertainty with the budget deficit. Congress has gone back now to try to raise a debt ceiling, but they have to be very cautious because if they make too many cuts, they could cause growth to start stagnating or declining, including programs like ours. Our program is back on the table again on the debt ceiling discussion, on possible cuts to social service programs such as ours. So that's a concern for us at this point. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you for starting out with good news.
Very interesting. Thank you for doing that.
That was very interesting. Thank you.
Questions?
Yes, I have a few questions, if I may. What industries do we focus on as far as our programs go? You touched on it briefly, but like, what programs do we offer?
We like to focus on our largest industries. We have entertainment, which we've seen some pretty good growth and demand for certain occupations. Manufacturing is, I think, the third largest industry in Glendale. Retail is also fairly large, but we don't focus on retail because most of the jobs in that area tend to be lower wage jobs. Another example is the utility industry. We've been working together with Glendale Water and Power that was having some labor shortages, so we trained people for some of the occupations there. And then one of our biggest projects, our hospitals locally were having trouble finding nurses in the last 5 or 6 years, and so we invested funding to train about close to 400 nurses, I think, to help alleviate the nursing shortage.
Okay, and one question, this is for my own information. Recession ended June of 2009. Where did we get that stats from?
The date? There's a special board that's appointed by, not sure if it's appointed by the president, but it's a council of top economists. And it's funny because they make the decision about when the recession started and when it ended. There's a Stanford professor and other professors. And they make these decisions as much as a year or two after they determined that the recession ended. So we go on for a long time wondering, well, when did this recession actually end? And it isn't official until this special council of economists makes that decision.
Okay.
I have a question about the U6 number of unemployment. What about people that have been unemployed and then quit looking? Is that also included in that, or does that even make that number higher?
I don't believe that's included in that number, but that's very true because that's something I'm actually asked by the press locally a lot of times about, because you'll see the unemployment rate rise, and there doesn't appear to be a tangible reason why that occurs. And sometimes it's because a lot of the people give up in their job search, and it reduces the pool of what's considered a workforce that's looking for work. And so it changes the unemployment number.
So that U6 number, which was 16 point something, actually would be higher if we included the people that have quit looking.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
The recession ended. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it never happened for those professors because they still have a job.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much. What is next?
65C, Park Services.
President Rottfogel, Commissioners, my name is Gary Morello, Park Services Administrator. Before I start the quick presentation I have here, we want to thank my staff for working tirelessly the last couple of weeks at Stengel Field. We had the All-Star game over there for the college. And with Joanne's staff also, my staff, we were up there till 8 o'clock at night sodding the field on 2 nights. And it came out really nice, came out really good. But I want to thank everybody. I also want to thank the College All-Stars, the Angelinos, for lending their support and their labor to help us get the job done. So I just wanted to let that be known first. I have a real quick presentation here on the Municipal Services Building, which is just to the east of us here. In the beginning, they had a landscaping job that was done by a contractor who was more hardscape ability than landscape ability, and they brought in some undesirable soil. They had a plan that was not what I would consider to be real correct in planting. You can see the bare areas. It's hard to see on that lower right, but those plants that are there now have died out. They were dying out. There was no sun. You can't hardly grow plants without sun. And there was absolutely no sun in there. We did soil tests also. You can see some of the foot traffic. And you can go to the next one. And the object the problem was there was just too many things that were wrong. There was just too many sprinkler heads. Plants being planted in different type climates where you had no sun, you had decent sun. The soil was actually one of the worst. It was compacted. It was high in salts, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur. It was high in everything. And they gave me the job of making it turn green again. So I came up with the plan of removing all these areas that you can see there. We went through and we removed all the areas of ground cover that were not doing well, got rid of all the soil to 4 inches deep, removed it, brought in nice topsoil. The one on the lower right-hand corner here is where the pillars are located. There's 4 of those pillars, and all those plants got removed. I just took them all out. There was star jasmine that was the same 4 inches tall that it was 2 years ago. The boxwood, the taller plants next to the gentleman standing there, the whole insides of those plants were just brown and dead because they were getting no sun. Just the one branch was staying green on the outside. Go ahead, Iris. Again, we removed it all down, took it out of there, just disposed of it. Again, there was over 100 cubic yards that was removed. I could have gone up to 400 cubic yards, but unfortunately that was cost prohibitive, so we did the best we could with what we had there. Again, it was dug down 4 inches deep all over. And then the replanting took place, and we replanted back with what we had, only because it was already there. I already had about 300, maybe 3,000 to 5,000 square feet of already good stuff, so we decided to try it one more time with the same stuff that was there. It will work, it will grow well, but it has made the area look a lot nicer. You have a before of nothing. The after is a little hard to see because of the shadow, but it was all replanted out. And then we decided to do around each pillar, getting rid of everything else, plant one row of what they call liriole, which is on the outside of the front row, and just mulch the entire, bark the entire area in. We were able to shut off approximately 50 to 60 heads, sprinkler heads per quadrant, which saves a lot of water. Since the water is domestic water, it's not it's potable water. It's not recycled over there. Any questions? Any comments? It was a quick project that only took about 2.5 weeks to complete, but I think it looks a whole lot better than it did, and I think it'll now be BZ sustainable.
Looks really nice.
Questions?
What was that around the border? How did that border? What was that? How do
The
you
one
spell it?
where the by the bark?
By the mulch, yeah.
Okay, that was liriope. L-I-R-O-P-E. R-I-O-P-E.
Nice. It looks great.
And it will grow under lower light, whereas the plants that they had planted there really needed more. So we tried to pick something so they have something on both sides of that walkway. But the mulch will keep its color because it won't get much sun back there. It'll stay that nice natural color for probably a couple of years, and then we'll have to add a little bit more to it on top.
As always, your staff did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Item 6B5D, Recreation and Community Services.
Commissioners, I'd like to bring your attention to the monthly activity report, and if you have any questions, one item that we are going to be concerned at looking at in the next few months is because the leisure guide will no longer be out in print, distributed all over. We are going to be sending a postcard to approximately 10,000 homes to let them know that the leisure guide is available online and we're going green. So we hope that will attract attention to the website. We're going to have a little bit of a new look to the leisure guide this year. We're going to be adding, it's going to be a Adobe format, but we're going to try and use a lot of color to try and make it attractive and enticing so that when you go visit it, it's going to grab your attention, hopefully. So that's a couple of the plans. We've put a media team in place where we've taken a lot of the, as everyone knows, Karen Fries is going to be retiring from the department soon. And so we're taking all the tasks that she does, because it's a very important position for us, the public information officer. And we're taking all those different elements and distributing them among staff. A lot of the staff want to get some experience, so this is a great opportunity to do some cross-training and get everybody involved in it. But we're very interested in how contract classes will do, so our contract class report will change a bit. We're going to try to do some comparisons to the before and after leisure guide, if you will. The customer service monthly report, and also the civic auditorium revenue, which that really is not affected that much by the leisure guide, but I think the marketing, I bring it up because the marketing team should really, really come into play with helping the civic auditorium put some information out. We want to try and establish our website as something that's very friendly and usable, and then get into really take advantage of Twitter. And hopefully the city will give us permission to get into Facebook, which will help us market our contract classes, which will give us a presence out there. So we're hoping that that's going to take place in the future. If you have any questions regarding this report, I also wanted to move to updates on the pools, but if you have any questions, open.
No, great.
Great. So very quickly, I just wanted to give you an update on the aquatics program. We're really putting a lot of staff to work this summer with the pools. Not to say our day camps are all full also, so our summer counselors we're employing people for the summer. I have to say that. They're active, they're busy, and we've had good weather so far. But our Pacific Park pool, our average daily attendance is 250 swimmers, which is a lot. That puts a lot of staff on duty, uses a lot of chemicals, so our chemical usage is up tremendously. 800 to 1,000 people walk into that facility almost every day, now that it's open full completely in the morning and through the evening, the early evening because of the sunlight. Over at with the Pacific pool, something that's an important statistic for us, and this measures our success, is the numbers of rescues. We have our lifeguards that have performed over 20 rescues, 7 I think I mentioned once on opening day. 35 incidents or accidents have been addressed by lifeguards, and that has to do with cuts and bumps into people, and I hit my head. They dive to the bottom of the pool, and all of a sudden they come up and they're gripping their head. So those are little tiny incidents that don't even require immediate dive in the pool by a lifeguard, but they're important to us. The Hoover High School pool, again, also has an average attendance of 250. There's about approximately 500 people that use that facility regularly. So even though it's open part-time, there is a number of people from the south to mid-Glendale area that utilize that facility. It's a very, very busy facility. And if we had it on a regular basis, it would be just as probably impacted as Pacific Pool. There we have about 5 rescues, 15 incidents. Again, our time in the pool is shortened. We're in 3 and 4 hour increments in a day. So our time frame is a lot less. Those of you who watched opening day at the Pacific Pool, you saw the crowds. There's lines every day to get in the pool, and the crowds are still there, and it's still a lot of people, a lot of families using it on the weekends, which has been terrific. We also have the 5 wading pools, and we wanted to bring this to your attention because we've done a terrific job with our wading pool party package. We have, since in 2009 when we first started, we first dabbled in it, we had 24 packages that we basically sold for parties, mostly birthday parties for families. In 2010 we doubled it, and we're already at 33, and we're just halfway through our summer. With wading pools we run into September and October because we still have good weather, so we really, really do a good business in August and September. So we definitely see that this will be increasing. So just wanted to kind of give you an update where we are, what's going on with the pools, and we're busy, really busy. That's it.
Great report. Any questions? Okay. What is next?
6B5E CIP projects.
Jess, do you want to introduce?
For those of you that don't know, this is Hagab Kasabian. He is a project manager in our CIP section. Hagab is actually filling in for George Balteria. George Balteria is a senior project manager, and George is filling in for Dave Ahern in the interim until we decide what to do about that position on a permanent basis.
So he's filling in for the fill-in?
He's filling in for the fill-in.
Always.
Good afternoon.
Yes, there's no drop-off, I might add.
Good afternoon, President Raffol, Commission members. Again, my name is Hagab Kasabian, Project Manager with the CIP section. Before I get to the slides, I'm just going to take you quickly through the activity report, and then I'll get to the good news. Again, what an incredible couple of years we've had in the Parks Department, and I don't mean to say that in any negative connotation that we're ending it, but I believe this is going to continue. We've capped it off with some great projects the last couple of months, and we will continue to do so, and I really, truly believe that. Now, we have a few projects, such as the Maryland Mini Park project. That's it's about 80% complete construction, the design document, so that's something we're currently working on. We also have Brand Park security upgrades, same as car park security upgrades. We are working with consulting firms to get those two projects going and moving forward. Excuse me, just kind of going through these pages here. Riverwalk project is currently under construction. The two important things that are going on that project currently, we've had to over-excavate some of the riprap area, which had a lot of dirt that was too soft. Initially, we thought that was going to be good enough to be able to use, but unfortunately, we've had to over-excavate it according to our soils engineer recommendation. And we've also started the grading, the rough grading of the ramp area leading up to that concrete location where we had our ground breaking ceremony, if any of you had attended. We also do have the tennis courts at Glendale High School, and those tennis courts are basically replacing some of the tennis courts we did lose over at the ARC project. And we do have a contractor that is the lowest qualified bidder, and we do plan on taking a report to City Council next month to award the contract to this contractor. Now, I'm going to get back very quickly to the grand openings we've had. Obviously, a lot of this has been talked about. Again, we've had some great events. The first one, which was last month on June 4th, we had the Pacific Pool grand opening. And as Joanne mentioned, we do have a lot of users of that facility. And the day of the opening, we had approximately 500 people attend the ceremony. And we had a line going all the way back across the plaza, back to the door of the Pacific Community Building. It is a LEED certified building. It has gold LEED certification. Basically, we can achieve gold certification, and we are working on platinum, which would be the highest. It is a facility again that gets close to 1,000 users a day. Would you like me to move forward with the slides?
If you don't mind.
This is it, correct? Here's some of the team members. Again, Dave as the lead, you have the CIP guys in the background, but again, this was an effort of everybody in the department, going from maintenance, CIP, recreation, and everybody else that has helped us out with other city departments as well, from inspectors, public works, GWP. So every project we do work on, it is truly an effort, a team effort. It's not a single person, it's not a single group or a section, but it does take an effort of everybody to come together and make things like this happen. Again, we have the mayor, council members, at the front entry. As you can see, the top left-hand corner picture is a line of people trying to get in, who got into the facility, and again, extends all the way back to the community building. At the pool, we have a diving board. We've got the recreation or the shallow area. the laps on the far end. Again, I'm not going to go into all those details. The other project we had a grand opening for this past month, at the end of the month, was Maple Park Community Center. This is a building that was built in 1966, 12,000 square feet, and I've used this facility since probably I was 10 or 11 years old. I used to live a couple of blocks down from this building, used to go there, play basketball pretty much 2 or 3 times a night, and sometimes it was a little intimidating going in there playing basketball with a lot of the older folks. So the building was definitely in need of rehab and remodeling, and not only the building did get a facelift, but along with that, the park as well. Again, there is a 5,400 square foot addition to the old or to the existing building, which is in the background, and the new facilities right in the foreground here. And we have new offices. The gymnasium has been upgraded. The lower level of the existing building has been turned into, again, community rooms, computer center, and so forth. The gymnasium, as a lot of people have mentioned, with the glue lamp beams that did get refinished, it looks amazing. To be able to go back into that gym, and it takes me back years, but again, what used to be there about 20, 25 years ago and what's there today is night and day. It's the project really turned out great. Again, we have the entry to the building with the ribbon cutting. We had approximately 200, close to 200 people at the grand opening of this facility as well. And at the end of the ceremonies and the speeches, we did have kids with mural painting and some artwork. Griffith Park grand opening, this was the most recent one on July 2nd. This is a park, one of the oldest parks in the city, northwest portion of the city. And the community initially had asked for quite a bit of improvements to this park. One of them was a play structure with shade on it, a new community building, new restrooms, a crosswalk across the street, a basketball court, and some security features. Everything they asked for was delivered. And I believe the community, again, unfortunately I wasn't able to make this event, but I understand the event did turn out great. The park looks great. I've been there several times. I was there while it was still under construction, and it looks amazing. One of the advantages this park also has, it has a lot of mature trees on the 3-acre park, which really makes it makes it look great. Here are a few shots of the opening date, and very famous people were at the event. And Shahan, their agent. Last that I have on my list here, but definitely not least, is the barn at Wilderness Park, at Dicmajan Wilderness Park. This project is the 4th phase of the Wilderness Park, and with the 4th phase meaning it was the structural rehab of the historic barn. The barn was built between 1914 and 1918. And when we initially had received bids for this project, we had the base bid and 4 alternates. We were able to do the base bid and alternate number 2, which mainly involved the structural rehab of this building. Now, alternates 1, 3, and 4 involve the HVAC system, which is basically the mechanical system, heating, ventilating, and the air conditioning system. We have the electrical system, plumbing system. That would be part of that phase. The other alternates include the flooring, retaining wall that would be inside the building, and finally a restroom facility. In order to be able to operate this building as a community building, we do need to provide an additional restroom facility. The building, I don't know if you remember, the building used to have a ring for quite a while. It had a ring around it to support this building. That ring is down. All the windows, or the majority of the windows, have been replaced with the new windows and new doors, new barn doors. We do have new storefront doors. If I go back to the picture behind, again, I'm sorry if. Right in the center of the picture where you see the archway, those are the barn doors. Once you open those barn doors, you do have storefront doors behind it. And here's a look from the inside of the building. This was such an amazing project to be a part of and to work on. Basically, what we've had to go through is rehab a stone building that didn't have any footings, any foundation to it. So when we were digging underneath the structure, you just encountered either dirt or large pieces of rocks and stone that worked as your foundation. So we've had to come in, put 8 buttresses to support all the walls. What you see around a ring of concrete right in the center of that picture is the middle bond beam. Then there's another bond beam similar to that one on the roof level, which what gives you is a structure that is completely supported from the roof all the way down to the ground. And that's basically, in more simple words, the structural rehab of this building. We have added a lot of concrete to it. Obviously, we've supported the building as well as we can. Now we are waiting to be able to fund this building further, to be able to continue with the MEP system and also the flooring and so on. One of the chimneys that what used to be the kitchen, and that was the entry to their living quarters, and all the windows have been replicated. We took examples of what was existing there, and we actually replicated those windows before we demolished any of the doors or the windows that were at the barn. This pretty much concludes my presentation. One last thing I'd like to mention, and I had mentioned this to Jess, and Jess, I'm sorry if I didn't get your input on it earlier. We did receive an award from the American Planning Association for it's a historic landmark award for historic buildings in new parks. And the 2 parks that did receive the award were the gas station at the Adams Square Mini Park and the Glendale Heritage Garden as well. And that was back on June 22nd. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job. Congratulations.
Great job.
Thank you.
The trees at Griffith Manor, those were all the original trees, correct?
Yes. And I believe there were a couple of trees that did get transplanted into different parks. Gary, you might be able to help me out with that.
Well, there was one magnolia there that was boxed up. There was a pine tree that was boxed up. That was there for almost maybe a year and a half in a 80-inch box. And it's a magnolia, and it was transplanted back in that park. We didn't take it anywhere else. We were going to. We decided to put it back into that park again, and it's planted very close to the entrance as you pull in.
Great. Great job.
Before I leave, I'd like to call up Mark Sturtevant just to give you a quick update on the open space planning. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. President Rob Fogel, members of the Commission. I'm Mark Sturtevant, Senior Analyst for the Community Services and Parks Department. And Jess asked me to address you today to talk a little bit about where we stand with our trails and open space programs. As you all know, we recently went through some very difficult times, and we're in the tough position of making some serious cuts in the department staff and programs for the coming fiscal year. And unfortunately, one of those cuts that was approved by the City Council was our Park Naturalist program. And while most of the programs, classes, events, and activities that had been offered by the Park Naturalists have been canceled, I want to make sure that you know, and that folks watching at home know, that the Department's Trails and Open Space program will remain, and it will operate on a limited basis. And to that end, Jess has asked me to be responsible for overseeing our remaining trails and open space programs. As some of you know or may know, I have a long history with trails and open space issues here in the city. In fact, I think that's where Commissioner Sharkey and I first met some 14 or 15 years ago when we were kids. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to put some of my skills to work in the area of trails and open space. For the past year, we've been operating our third Saturday Workday program at Duke-Magian Wilderness Park. This program is going to remain as part of our ongoing efforts to restore the park after the station fire. We'll be offering the third Saturday program throughout the rest of the year, and we are looking for volunteers. So if anyone watching at home is interested in coming out to a very beautiful setting on a Saturday morning and helping us work to restore the park, we will be very happy to have you join us. We held a successful work day there this past Saturday. We had about 15 residents in the park. These folks watered our 50-plus big cone spruce trees and coast live oaks, and they did a substantial amount of removal of invasive weeds as well from the open space areas. We also had some volunteers there who were a little new to me, but I really enjoyed the opportunity to get to know them. And they were doing weeding in the 4 iris beds that exist in the park. And this is kind of a new area for us, but it's one where we're looking to put a group who is interested in doing more traditional gardening in the park, a sort of a Duke-Magian garden club, if you will. So those folks who can help us with the landscaped areas of the parks, and that's something we'll be looking to grow in the coming months as well. We're going to be doing a series of community-based interpretive programs, and they will be focused around the expertise that will be offered to us by people, for example, from the staff at Glendale College or at the local high schools, people who have expertise in a particular area who would be interested in coming out and leading a hike or doing an evening program at Duke-Magian. So look for those to begin in August, and the first of those will be actually happening on the evening of August the 13th. It's going to be from 9 p.m. to midnight. It's kind of a nighttime activity, and we will be out in the park to view the Perseid meteor shower. So put that on your calendars, August the 13th from 9 to midnight. So in spite of the loss of staff and budget, we believe that we have still with us one truly important resource that's going to see us through these tough times, and that resource is the community. As I've indicated, we hope to organize community volunteers as never before to help with restoration, gardening, interpretive programs, and other activities. And we believe that by working with our community over time, we can nurture and revitalize our trails and open space programs and keep it healthy and keep it really moving forward into the future. We're looking for community groups to join us. And already I believe we will be counting on the services of the Sunrise Rotary, thanks to President Rottfogel. And by the way, I've got a flyer here for you, so don't leave without touching base. And I know of at least one Boy Scout troop that's already contacted me and said they're interested in coming out and bringing a whole slew of Boy Scouts with them. So we're going to look for a lot of community groups to come out and support us at the park.
I'm sure the Kiwanians will be there also.
And Kiwanians would be more than welcome. Please feel free to stop by, and we can chat about how Kiwanis would be very welcome at the Duke. And for students who might be watching at home, or for students who you might know, this is a great opportunity for community service hours. We had one student from Clark Magnet and her mom out this past Saturday. She picked up 3.5 community service hours by doing weeding in the park and had a good time while she was doing it. So we're going to be looking to expand that role with the high schools as well. If anyone would like further information about trails and open space, they are very welcome to contact me. My name is Mark Sturdivant. My phone number direct to my desk is 818-550-4405, or you can always call the main department number at 548-2000, and they will get the word to me. And with that, if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Sorry. The third Saturday program, what time does it start?
8 in the morning. It usually runs from 8 to noon.
8 to noon.
Sometimes if it's really hot outside, we'll cut it short and let everybody go home early. But we're happy to have people join us right at 8 o'clock. This past Saturday, a number of folks dropped by at 9. One woman was just hiking down out of the canyon. She said, "What are you guys doing?" We said, "Well, we're weeding and watering." She looked at her watch and said, "Oh, I've got a couple of hours." she jumped right in and went to work. So it's formally 8 a.m. to noon, but we'll take people whenever they want to stop by.
Okay, where do you get together first?
We get together right off the main parking lot in the park, right next to the barn. We usually hold a little get-acquainted session and a safety talk in the amphitheater, and then we divvy up. We have a team that supervises the watering of the newly planted big cone spruce and the coast live oaks, and if you're interested in watering, you go off with the watering team. And we also have a weeding team, and now we've even got this sort of formal gardening team. So there's plenty of opportunities to do different things in the park.
And you can never have too many volunteers,
And
right?
never have too many volunteers in the park.
Also, the Glendale Parks and Open Space Foundation, we're going to meet next week, and hopefully we can help out too. So,
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. And I think there's only one thing left.
Yeah. Item 7 is adjournment.
And we do have an August meeting scheduled.
Right.
What's the
Did
date
you
of the
want to go
meeting?
dark?
That's August 15th at 2:30 p.m. in the council chambers.
Right. No, we've been requested not to.
Okay.
So, and as you can tell from the length of this meeting, we had plenty of stuff on this
Oh, yeah.
agenda. So there will be a whole nother thing. So,
Mr. President,
yes.
I will not be here for August, so I'll be absent. I'll be out of the country.
How about the rest of you?
I'm good.
So far, so good.
I'm pretty sure I'm good, yeah. Almost wasn't.
And if not, if we're not going to have a majority of the commission, then find another date in August.
Okay,
Okay, very good.
okay.
All right. With nothing else, then we are adjourned. Thank you.